Welcome back to episode 2. We're starting right where we left off, at the National Library of Malta. Seen from above, the library looks like a quiet anchor in the middle of Valletta's grid, perfectly placed, perfectly balanced.
I just wanted to break the video for a moment. If you like my content and are enjoying, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe so I can create more content like this. Now, back to the video.
This building holds some of the most important documents in Maltese history, including records from the Knights of St. John. This building is a great example of classic Valletta architecture. You can almost feel the weight of the centuries in the details. Every stone seems to hold a story. And even the hallways have that classic, dignified architecture Malta is known for. Now let's walk around this area and continue exploring the older streets behind the library. As we head through these narrow streets, you'll notice how different Valletta feels compared to the bigger squares. These tight lanes are some of the oldest parts of the city layout. This one we're in now is Tesoreria Street. Small, quiet, and very typical of Valletta's grid design. The Knights planned the city with narrow side streets like this to give shade, reduce wind, and help with ventilation, especially in summer. We're now in St. Lucia Street. This one is popular with locals, and if you come later in the day, it's usually much busier. Mornings in winter give it a much calmer vibe. Glance up and you'll spot the classic wooden balconies of Valletta known as Galleria. Some are tiny, others stretch impressively wide, and a few even sweep around full corners like the one you see ahead. They're a mix of Arabic, Italian, and British influence and became popular so families could look out onto the street without stepping outside. Now we're in the Merchant Street. This is one of Valletta's main historic streets. Back in the day, it was buzzing with traders, markets, and shops, which is why it's called Merchant Street. Even today, you'll find cafes, craft shops, and government buildings along here. It's a bit more modern than some other streets, but still keeps that classic Valletta look. Right now, the tables and chairs in the middle of the street are empty. It's still morning, but at night, this area comes alive with people, music, and cafes. Everywhere you look, these centuries-old limestone buildings have their own charm, especially the traditional Galleria hanging over the streets. Merchant Street is usually where you really feel Valletta wake up, second only to Republic Street, but because we came a bit early this morning, you might not sense the city starting to stir just yet. We're looping back toward Republic Square now, just completing the little circle around the library. This street we're walking on is Old Theatre Street, one of Valletta's classic side streets. It's not as busy as the main roads, but it's full of character and lined with historic buildings, and that unmistakable Valletta charm as you make your way back toward the square. These streets are paved with traditional cobblestones, worn smooth over time. Every step here connects you to Valletta's past. It's a short walk, but it gives you a nice feel for Valletta's quieter side. narrow streets, old facades, and that early morning calm before the city comes alive. We're back here again in the National Library's hallway, the same quiet passageway that frames Valletta's history so beautifully. Check out this massive balcony that runs along the Grandmaster's palace. It's one of the longest enclosed wooden balconies in Valletta. Buildings like this used large balconies so guards and officials could look over the square and streets below without stepping outside, practical and symbolic at the same time. Right ahead is St. George's Square. It's one of the main public spaces in Valletta and often used for events, parades, and celebrations. In summer, it's full of people, but mornings in winter are much calmer. I believe winter is the best time to explore the city, giving you a chance to take in the architecture, the statues, and the overall atmosphere without the crowds. Take a look at this incredible balcony. It wraps around the Grandmaster's palace all the way to the corner, one of the longest and most impressive in Valletta. As for the Grandmaster's palace, it was once the seat of power for the Knights of St. John, and later the main building for Malta's government during British rule. Today it still serves important state functions and also holds a museum. The architecture inside is pure 16th century Valletta. Thick stone walls, perfectly balanced windows, and ornate coats of arms carved with incredible detail. We'll see if we can come back another day to explore the interior properly. Grandmaster's Palace has two main entrances on the front facade facing St. George's Square. Here is one of them. As of today, the palace houses the office of the President of Malta. Now we're walking toward the Sete Juno Memorial, a place that marks one of the most important moments in Malta's modern history. Sete Juno means 7th of June. It remembers the 1919 uprising, a moment when Maltese people took to the streets demanding fair prices, better living conditions, and political rights. At the time, the price of bread had become so high that many families were struggling to survive. Tensions rose, protests broke out, and sadly, 4 Maltese men were shot and killed. This event shocked the island and pushed Malta closer to gaining self-government from the British, which is why this memorial is such an important part of Maltese history. Today, this memorial stands as a reminder of how ordinary people shaped the country's future. It's a quiet spot, but the history behind it is powerful. As we walk away from the Sete Juno Memorial, you'll notice the streets getting a bit quieter. This part of Valletta has fewer shops and more residential corners. Now we'll continue toward one of Valletta's most famous and once infamous streets, Straight Street. You can really enjoy these morning walks. There is no traffic, no noise, just the soft echo of your footsteps and the look of a capital that has barely changed in generations. These quieter streets show you Valletta without the crowds, just limestone buildings, balconies, and morning light. Moments like this make the city feel almost frozen in time. You can really see how old this building is. These walls are antique. They show decades of sun and salt, and together they give this part of the capital a unique rhythm. Valletta's architecture is nationally important, and because the entire city is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, there are strict conservation rules in place. Historic facades have to be preserved so the city keeps its original character. This is Straight Street, also known as the Gut. It used to be the nightlife hotspot during the British period, full of bars, music, sailors, and a very lively reputation. These days it's much calmer and known for small restaurants, art spaces, and live music, a completely different vibe compared to its past. Straight Street was once packed with music halls and cabarets. One of them, the Victoria Music Hall, was photographed around the 1920s by S.L. Kassar. Thanks to his work, we can still imagine how lively and colorful this street used to be. Including halls like Victoria Music Hall faded over decades. Many of the original music halls are now closed. The street went into decline with many former entertainers. Today, Straight Street is being revived as part of a wider effort to preserve its heritage. And as you can see, there are still restaurants and bars here, keeping the street alive, even as the restoration continues. And here we are back on Old Theatre Street. It's a nice little loop that brings us right into the heart of Valletta again. Old Theatre Street gets its name from Valletta's very first public theatre, the Teatru Manoel. Built in the 1730s, it's one of the oldest working theatres in Europe. The entire street became known for this landmark, and the name Old Theatre Street has survived ever since. We'll actually walk past the theater shortly. In fact, what you're seeing just ahead is actually part of the Manoel Theatre itself, Malta's oldest working theatre. What you're looking at here is Old Bakery Street, one of Valletta's older main streets with a lot of character. We'll head there later. Now let's continue toward Manoel Theatre. If these walls could talk, they'd probably complain about how many actors and musicians have leaned on them over the centuries. The street was full of life whenever the theater had a performance. Crowds, carriages, music in the air. Now it's just peaceful. You can really feel the age of Valletta here, the balconies, the limestone, even the quiet. Just ahead is the Manoel Theatre's main entrance. Imagine people walking this same street in the 1700s heading to a show. This is actually one of the oldest working theaters in Europe. It opened back in 1732 and it's still putting on plays, concerts, and all sorts of cultural events. Manoel was actually a Grandmaster of the Knights, Antonio Manuel de Villena. He's the one who decided Malta needed a proper theater and had this one built back in 1732. From the outside it looks quite simple, but inside it's beautifully decorated with gold, woodwork, and classic theater design. We'll explore that interior another day. Now let's walk toward the St. Paul's area, one of Valletta's historic neighborhoods. It's full of character, local activity, and some great viewpoints along the way. Right ahead is Old Mint Street, a narrow, historic lane that was once home to Malta's first official mint. Today it's a quiet street, but every stone tells a story of the city's rich commercial and cultural past. This is the Basilica of Our Lady of Mount Carmel, one of Valletta's most iconic churches. Its massive dome is one of the city's most recognizable landmarks. This basilica was almost completely destroyed during World War II when bombs hit Valletta. The dome you see today was carefully rebuilt, restoring one of the city's most iconic landmarks. From up here, you can really see why Valletta's skyline is so stunning. The dome rises proudly above the city's honey-colored limestone, standing out among the narrow streets and historic rooftops. Valletta is full of churches, big and small, and each one has its own character. Speaking of churches, Malta is home to over 350 of them, which is remarkable for such a small country. Each one has its own history, art, and unique architectural style, making the island a treasure trove for culture and faith. You'll find everything from grand domes dominating the skyline to small chapels tucked quietly into village streets, all of them playing a part in the island's story and daily life. Some stand as major landmarks seen from miles away, while others are hidden gems you stumble upon by chance, each adding its own layer to Malta's culture, traditions, and sense of place. The more you explore these streets, the more you appreciate the details. This is the kind of place where the past and present walk side by side. We're nearing the end of today's episode. Our last stop will be Independence Square. That's where St. Paul's Cathedral is. We'll be there in just a moment. As we make our way toward Independence Square, you can really feel how the city shifts. Fewer cafes and bars, more residential and much quieter. And you'll start to see St. Paul's Cathedral rising above the square, a true centerpiece of Valletta's history and skyline. These colorful balconies catch your eye at every turn, giving Valletta's streets their unique charm and vibrant personality. We're now at the Independence Square. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. Next time we'll pick up right here and explore more of Valletta.